Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Over Sharon show. You know what we say about the show, the best darn show on the internet.
Interwebs.
In the interwebs, because we have the best damn fans on the interwebs.
Listeners, watchers, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. Followers.
Fans.
Cult members. I keep going the wrong way. Acolytes. No. Slaves. Anyway. Today we don't actually have a outline. We're just going to have a nice free flow conversation. So I'm really excited about that. We're going to talk about what we've been talking about recently. And I also have a new idea, or kind of like a new thing that popped in my head. I don't think it's an exact new idea. There's all like different aspects of stuff I pulled in, but that's all right. First, do you have any quotes? You said you had the Bhagavad Gita or the Bible thing. You want to read that while I pull a card? Or
I totally could. Well, okay, so this is because I'll tell you kind of background for why I'm reading this. Well, maybe I'll tell you afterward.
Yeah, that's fine. So I got a new deck yesterday. Smith Waite Tarot. It's based on the Rider Waite, obviously. Smith, Pamela Coleman Smith is one of the she's the artist that did a lot of the stuff. So
yeah,
these ones don't have any
it's
borders.
funny because like I never know what they just call it Rider Waite, but it really is Rider Waite Smith because she was involved, right? Allegedly. Yeah.
Well, there's like a Rider Waite Universal, a Rider Waite. There's so many different versions of it, but yeah, she was one of the main. Oh wow, that's really cool. Look at the.
Is that the Empress or
High Priestess?
High Priestess. Yeah.
High Priestess.
I get the High Priestess sometimes.
Yeah, I used to get it a lot when I first started.
I'm going to read a quote from Matthew, the book of Matthew in the Bible, chapter 10, verse 34 to 39. It says, okay, I copied this from, I think it's the Berean Bible on, what's that website? Whatever. Anyway. Do not assume that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves his father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves his or her daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And anyone who does not take up his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. The reason I'm bringing that up is that I had an epiphany during the discussions of our last episode with Brandon. And I thought of the Bhagavad Gita, or I can't remember what I was doing. Is either reading the Bhagavad Gita or we were chatting about Bhagavad Gita. And this scripture came to mind because I'm like, as I read it, or as I thought about it, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like Jesus said something like that too. It was something like that. And it just reminded me of that. Your thoughts, Brandon?
Yeah, I think it was because we were talking about how Arjuna was in that war and he had to go and fight against his
own family.
Yeah, his immediate family was on his side, but everybody in the kingdom where he grew up, including his, I think I said in the last episode, it was gurus, everybody that trained him and everything, everyone he ever knew, he had to fight against them because they all chose the other side. So I think it's the same kind of analogy that they might be getting at, where it's like when you get into the spiritual work, you could take it on two levels, esoterically and exoterically. So the exoteric is more like people around you aren't going to vibe with it. And you're going to have to learn how to deal with it, right? You can either figure it out and remain around them, or you might have to just leave for a while or get away from people and stuff like that. And then the other one I think is esoterically, it has to do with the inner work, and you're making the choice of giving up your desires, all the worldly desires. Not that you can't, you don't have to go off and be a monk somewhere, but just in your everyday life, give up those desires and you start to walk a different path. So it's like aspects of yourself that are no longer relevant to who you are now because of all this work you're doing and the path you're on. You just start to let them go. So that could be scary for people as well. And that comes right in with the death moment and stuff like that. We've talked about that episode 13 and 13.13. So if you're new to the show, or, if you're not new to the show and it's been a while, just go back and watch it. What else are you going to watch? There's nothing but the Over Sharon show. I'm telling you.
Yeah. And here I am with a long list and a long queue of things that I want to watch.
How dare you?
I know. I should just go back and listen to our shows.
Yeah. Well, I think it's different for us because this is stuff we always talk about and we always are interested in. So I mean, just for other people, because we have to watch other stuff so we can make the show. So you could just watch the show. You don't even have to watch the other stuff,
Point taken.
So this deck came with 4 extra cards that I guess because Pamela Coleman Smith, like we were saying, she's an artist. So it came with 4 extra cards, which are pretty cool. They're 2 are just watercolor paintings. Yeah.
Okay.
Very interesting. I tell you what. So it says it's a representation of the Lover's card and another here. I'll just do this.
Oh yeah.
And then we got that.
And these are the 4 extras.
Yeah. They have borders. The other ones don't have borders on them. Cool. This is just a painting.
Oh.
Yeah. And then watercolor painting. And so is this. Yeah, I like that one.
Cool.
Those are those cards. I'm going to shuffle this up, though.
Okay.
First time shuffle.
There you go.
Have you been pulling cards recently for yourself?
No, I have not. Kind of. I recently, okay, here's the funny bit. The Ace of Wands.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that's the funny bit. Yeah, the Ace of Wands. It's funny because when I opened the deck, this is the first card on top of it. Yeah, I just shuffled them though, and it came right out of the middle.
Wanted to be picked.
Wanted to be picked. Yeah, so the Ace of Wands represents, I think we've talked about this before, but wands represent fire of creation.
Action.
Yep. Magic. So it has a lot to do with, it even kind of looks a little phallic, especially at the top, right? Oh, Jesus. So it represents creation in that way. And it's a new one. So it's like a new beginning. So maybe that this is a sign that this format that we have, we could do once in a while. It's like a new thing we could work on, have a conversation, just a free flow, and talk about what's on our minds. I wanted to talk about, so we did all these episodes about, Psyops and who they are, and then who the they out there could be. And I was sending messages to Sharon, and I'm like, I think they are us. And when I mean us, I just mean everybody on the planet, because so you have this one frame of mind that people think the Illuminati run the world. And there's all these secret societies that all get together and they all have the same agenda and they just check notes. And then, so that's one. I think it's a little different though. I do believe that those types of societies do exist out there, but I think that they're kind of in competition with each other, because there's just different classes of people, right? So you have people who've done the work and aren't worried about the world or whatever. I guess I'll just say it that way. And then they're just like normies, I guess you could say, right? And then you have other people. I mean, even this, it's not just the normie level. Like when we were talking about with the different levels of aperture, where you have white belt is ignorance, yellow belt is anger, yellow belt is fear, red belt is anger, and then purple is more of an understanding of what's going on. And you could use this frame for anything that happens. You could use it for psyops. Some people are just in ignorance. Some people are afraid of them. Some people are mad because they realize it's a lie. I mean, some people are even in fear because they realize it's a lie, and they get scared because they think everyone's controlling the world, or someone's controlling the world and they're going to come get them. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think, though, it's just, excuse me. I don't think it's just one entity that runs everything. So it's possible there are other entities and they maybe work with each other or against each other because they realize that there's this population that's, we'll just call like the cattle, whatever, and they're out there to be steered one way or another. And then, I mean, and from the discussions we've had, that basically just is on the people that are doing that. In our opinion, we kind of feel that if you're allowed to be led around, or if you don't put enough attention into it, then it's, they're given plenty of revelation of method. At this point, they really consider consent, I would agree. And to a certain degree, it really is a lot of consented stuff, like people covering their smiling faces, or these medical experiments that they're doing, right? Experimental medical serums. So I was explaining it to a friend today a little bit, because I don't think she's of the opinion. I don't want to speak for her, but I don't think she's one of these people who thinks that there's an evil cabal that runs the world. So the way I was telling her, because we were talking about pro football, and I was telling her, I don't think it's exactly how they present it. I've seen a lot of evidence to suggest it might be fixed here, that who knows, I'm not going to get into it. But what I was telling her was, just people at the tops of these institutions, whatever they are, government, religion, the NFL, business, any of these institutions where people make billions and billions of dollars, like I said in the voicemail or in the message I sent to you, and then the government just prints their own money, so they have trillions or whatever. I think that people at the tops of those start to act in a certain way, and that behavior is a vibration that they get attuned to. So just like some people are in society doing one thing, and then, some people are into truth, or some people are into fear and anger. I think it's just different vibrations. And I feel like there's this vibration of, I guess you could say like a high ego, like I want to control, I want to have as much money as I can, I want to control as many people as I can. And I think that vibration alone puts these people at the top of all these in the same basic vibration. So that's why we get so many events that happen that seem like they're all coordinated, or every time something happens, it's kind of like the same script. I feel like this could be a good reason for it, because if they're at that vibration, right, if everybody is vibrating at that level, in the same way where we talk about the 100 monkeys experiment, where if one monkey figures something out and then enough, and then they could change the world. And then we were in one of the episodes, we were comparing that to vibration. I think in that way, it's just this negative vibration of downward spiraling. And the reason I think it happens is just the way that they're raised consciously, the way that they're raised. And I think that it could be conscious. Maybe their parents know it and they put them through some kind of training or whatever. But again, I think it's just this way, because if you look at this realm that we talk about as, it's like a place where you could do whatever you want, wherever you focus your time and attention. You could be rich and you could be actor or famous if you really put your everything into it, and you just go. I mean, some people I'm sure get an advantage, or you could just end up being whatever you want in life, really. So I think that this gets passed down in that way to some of these powerful people, and some people that get sick of it, maybe they're the ones that turn around and try to do some good or whatever in the world, and try to make it so, especially the people in that family, like say there was a son, they had like 5 sons, and one of them was just like, screw this, I'm not trying to run the world. So they can go out and do, in their eyes, do good and try to maybe alleviate some of the suffering that they perceive that the rest of their crazy rich families causing. And this isn't just obviously just rich people, but I think if we look at it from this angle, it's more of a less victimhood, because there's really, I mean, again, if you look at it, it would really appear that way. And I'm not saying like in the medical industry, when they all line up and do one thing, I'm not saying that's it. I'm sure you could look at Event 201, right? They have these meetings that they have and they talk about everything they're doing. And you can also look at different groups like the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg groups, these people. But I think if it's more of like a good old boys club and people get together and talk about these ideas, but again, I don't think it's just one cohesive entity that runs the whole world. I think they're really just kind of competing with each other. And another thing to alleviate some of this victim narrative is I feel like if you're not going along with it and you're not consenting, they kind of just leave you alone from my experience, you know?
Yeah. And what you were saying earlier about it reminded me of our friend Joe's Contemplations on Spirit, where he talked about, I think it was his episode 4, where he talked about the generational, like whatever you would call it, whether it's a curse or whatever, that he felt he broke with his family. Because, you know, he said, it's like you have children and if someone's beating their children and then it just gets passed down, each generation will keep doing. That's just an example, right? And it takes a lot for that generational, I don't know if these were the words he used, but I would say generational curse to be broken. And he decided he was going to be the one to do that. And it was because it was a choice, I think, because he saw the actions of his father who raised him, who he says is not his biological father, but he saw he was pretty much his father growing up. So he saw those actions and he used them as a way to say, I don't want to behave in that way. I want to change. I want to change things. I don't want to live my life this way. And he was drawn to spiritual topics and things like that. And because of that, he was able to break free from that spell, I guess you would say.
Yeah. I think that one of the major things he mentions was how he decided, instead of coming at it from a place of anger and revenge, because I think that's how it gets cycled down. Because say if a father's really shitty to his son, then his son is going to feel like a victim. You know, why did this happen to me? And then because of that victim narrative that he builds, he's going to, in this ego that he builds, it's going to become his personality. And then he's always going to be looking at himself as a victim. So when he has children, instead of putting his children first, and again, you're not supposed to always put your children first, I guess, with everything, but just as we talked about treating your neighbor as yourself, you don't really treat your child as a good neighbor. So he decided to step out of that victim narrative, which, you know, I really salute him for that, because it's pretty rare. I mean, maybe it's happening more these days. I hope it is, but from such a young age to do that, it's pretty rare. Yeah. And yeah, it really is how you break the cycle. And it goes back to what we've been saying, you know, in the last episode, we talked about treat your neighbor, or the golden rule, natural law kind of thing.
Yeah. And he's been doing that since he was a teenager, or, you know, like he's been having these thoughts and ideas and topics well before a lot of us will come to it, you know, a little later in life. So I applaud him as well.
And then I think he left in a comment. He was saying how natural law, you don't really have to, it doesn't really work by people aligning their behavior so much to what they think is right. And obviously he said that's a good guide. That's when you wake up. Yeah, it is a good guide to do that. But what happens is it just kind of runs along like a program. So people that are in that vibration that we're talking about, they just keep accruing this karma. Certain things keep happening to them. So natural law just affects them in that way. So they're just basically caught in this web. And so that's like the determinism part of it. And then if you look at the other aspect of free will, you have the choice in that moment. Then that's really when you have the choice, is in every moment to perform that deed. And as long as you still perform it, then you're going to be subject to that karma. And then if you break the chain or you break your behavior and you realize you don't want to do that, then you spiral up. And then sometimes people spiral down with their behavior. You know, they want more of it. So it's just like digging. So they just dig deeper until they hit rock bottom and they could bounce up. But at certain points, I mean, who knows what anybody's rock bottom is at that point. That's when you realize you want to break the cycle. And I think it was a really, really great way for him to enunciate that, to put into words, because it's something, you know, it kind of blew my mind. I never really thought about that aspect of it, how it just runs on all by itself and people are just part of it because of their everyday daily actions. That's not exactly his words. I'm just adding what I got out of it to it. But if you want to check out that comment, it's under episode 17.17, Contemplations of Spirit, and you could check out what he said. But it's pretty good. I like it. Maybe we should pull it up and read it exactly.
You could do that. I was going to make another comment while you pull that up.
Yeah.
That as I was listening to his little mini podcast, that I really liked how he talked about, he basically showed love to his father on his, like, in his deathbed, when his father apologized to him and he said, no, you were what you had to be, basically, for me to see the things I needed to see. And I am grateful for that. And I didn't realize that in our chat when I posted a quote, and maybe see if I can find the quote. But I had posted a quote in the chat, and that is what made him go and write that little, or go and, you know, record that little spiel. So it's just a little meme thing. I don't know if it's a quote necessarily, but it says, what if you were actually very blessed because you got to experience something hard, that you now have a depth and understanding, an awareness, an overcoming and strength that not all human beings get the opportunity to receive. So that's what prompted. At first, I thought it was a sync because he posted, because I went to listen to his little mini podcast. And then I said that to him. And then he's like, oh no, you actually basically got me thinking. And I went and recorded a short little thing. So it was cool.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. Pardon me. I think it might have been a voice comment that he left me, because I don't see, it's not on the YouTube.
See, you silly.
My Philly goof. Well, that's all right. I guess you can't go check out his comment. You just have to take our word for it. Must be a reason for it. But yeah, I think that the other good thing about this stuff is that we're meeting so many people that are, well, not so many, but we're meeting a select few individuals that are into this stuff. And now we could bounce ideas off each other without having to hear people say, how dare you? You know, like,
yeah.
So I think that's really, really important too, because even some of the stuff he was sending to me, I wasn't sure if I was, if I agreed with it totally until I read through it and had to absorb the knowledge. So if I was just, you know, dismissive of it, I could have lost it and just been like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about or whatever. But, you know, I was open to what he was saying, and in that regard, and other things too, like he was saying how people don't, in the same respect, they don't really choose who their parents are. It's more of, if you're thinking of the way karma works and everything, before you come into this realm, you're kind of just put in the situation because of your vibration, because of your past actions, where you need to be to either keep moving up or keep moving down, depending on what's going to get you through. So in that way, it's kind of like a computer program, I guess, is the best way that I could analogize it.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I was like, I backed myself into a corner. I'm like, I want to say analogy, but
yeah. Yeah. And I thought that was a really good way that he put that, because I don't know, I really liked that concept, and it reminds me back of like vibration, and we've been on this topic of are we on the same vibration with each other, or the same frequency or whatnot. And it's like, he's like, you come back here and you're vibing with the same kind of people that you're vibing at. So until you like change that, and then, you know, if you're going to come back the next time, then you vibe with the people that are your people the next time to help you, like you, but you're still making the choices, right? You still take those vibes and you decide what you're going to do with those things.
Yeah, I think it's a really fine line. And that's why when they say this is infinite, I mean, we can't even understand what that means, right? It's just way beyond our scope of understanding. But every time maybe you just get put in this spot, and then it's based on the choices that you make, you can either go up or down. And it's possible that this realm just exists this way the whole time, and it's going to go up and down, and we're just kind of moving along with it. So, and maybe one day we'll figure out a way out of it. Maybe that's the key to it. You know, you have to come here long enough until you figure it out, and then you go up to the next, you get kicked up to the next level.
Yeah.
You know,
Speaking of that, so another friend who kind of, we are all talking about the same kind of topics. He sent me a video. This guy, I don't know if I think I've sent you stuff, one or two things of his maybe, but I don't know if you've seen it. His name's Aaron Abke, Abke. And he did this one, the first one I sent you, I think ever, was one about Jesus and like, kind of like who he was type of thing, but they're just short. He was going to be doing little short videos. I want to finish. I just want to keep watching, but I just haven't had a chance to. But I was looking at another one where he's with that guy, Brian Scott of Reality Revolution podcast, the one that's always posting Neville's stuff as well, Neville Goddard stuff.
mm-hmm.
No, so they're both talking, and this was a couple of years ago. So Brian Scott of Reality Revolution podcast and Aaron Abke of his own podcast, or whatever I don't know what he calls it. It's just YouTube. He and they both were talking about these two books, pieces of work called The Law of One. That was one of the ones they were talking about. And the other one was Course in Miracles. Have you ever heard of both? Have you ever heard of those?
I have, yeah. I forget, somebody I used to listen to would quote the Course in Miracles a lot. And I think, or the Course in Miracles, right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And I believe Ram Dass quoted it too, but yeah, it does sound familiar to me, but I have not read them.
Yeah. So that guy, Aaron Abke, has a series about what the Law of One is. And I want to check it out. And I also looked online for just like audiobooks on the Course in Miracles, and I found some stuff like that too as well. So I'm gonna have to check that out.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Speaking of all that, unless you had more to add, I had this idea lately where I think I'm gonna start trying to watch less videos and read more for a little bit to see how it goes, because I have a book about the Book of Revelation, and it's about Edgar Cayce and all his I guess you would call them readings that he did. So Edgar Cayce was this guy who lived in the late 1800s to mid 1900s. And from a young age, he was able to lay down like on books under his head, and he could memorize them. Like that's how he got through school. And I think he left school in like, 7th or 8th grade. That's basically when people used to leave school back then. That's the funny thing that people don't realize about high school. It used to mean like high school, like high schooling.
You were done.
Well, people didn't even go. It was more like college. People were usually, they were done by like 6th, 8th grade. Like once they got the basics, because they were on the farm, a lot of people were, they were, working in factories or who knows, whatever they were doing. But yeah, so it was looked at. And then now we have high school is pretty much mandatory. Well, for most people that are in the school system. And then college is like, a lot of people do that too. So college is that next step. And then you have grad school
education.
Yeah, so people could just
keep
educating
indoctrinating
themselves. Yeah, well, that's another thing I realized today, and I'll get back to Edgar Cayce, but words have so many different meanings. So especially when you start to get into symbolism and you get into like esoteric ideas. So you hear these words. And so I know what the word educate means, right? But if you go and look up what it exactly means, most people think it means to teach people a skill, but it's really more about indoctrination, really, like a re-education camp, right? So
Why am I not surprised?
yeah, so it kind of hides in plain sight there. It's really funny. So anyway, Edgar Cayce, I think he got sick because he didn't do that. So he did that when he was younger, and then he had gotten sick, and he had a friend come over and said, listen, I'm going to go into this trance that I used to go into when I was younger, you know, and I want you to kind of talk to me. So he describes it as he's going to sleep, but right before he gets into the deep sleep, when his eyes are kind of fluttering, if somebody's there and they could talk him through it, they can do like a hypnosis with him basically. And they ask him questions and then he can answer them. And he says he's going to the Akashic record to get these, you know, he said it was like, maybe this was him describing it this way, but it's like he would go to like a library desk and, you know, at a library, and somebody would come and bring him all these books for all the information he was looking for. So he started off helping doctors doing medical stuff. And then after a while, he started to give readings about past lives for people, and they had a strict religious background. So it was kind of freaked people out. So he laid off it for a little while, but as these readings kept going through, they just started going with him. And then later he did readings about the book of Revelation. And this book is about that. It's a guy who was in that foundation, and he read through all the prophecies, or whatever you want to call them, the readings. And now he's kind of given his view of them. And from what I see, the book of Revelation so far, I mean, I've only read a few pages, but it really seems how we take the Bhagavad Gita and use it esoterically. The book of Revelations can be done the same way.
I'll bet. I have no doubt. I haven't read it with new eyes yet, you know?
Yeah, I haven't either. So
yeah,
I think that it'll be great because I was been so familiar with that book as as younger, as a Christian and stuff. And when you see that there's different meanings, and he says it could be both, because he basically broke down 3 different ways that it could be. It could be like from the past, as he was writing it, it was, he's writing about something in the past, or he was writing about current events, or he was doing the esoteric thing and just kind of putting it down, or, obviously future events. Maybe I screwed that up somewhere, but maybe it's like a future prophecy. And he said, or it could also be a guide for people to do self-work who want to overcome and slay their own demons and all this stuff. So it's really interesting. And then, so I have that book. That's a book I've had for years, because I was into Edgar Cayce years ago, and I bought all these books, but I never read that one. And then it's crazy how it happens too, because I don't think I would have been ready at that time to read it. I wouldn't have,
totally.
I would have been bored or whatever. Not like I was, because I didn't have the keys that they talk about in the Hermetics. So the other book I got is called Sacred Water. I'm really excited about that too, because it talks about how water, is the source of all life. And then it talks about water as it's portrayed in spirituality and religions and all this stuff. So I'm really interested to see what it has to say. It lines up with anything that we've been talking about recently. And I'm sure it is. I was at a used bookstore yesterday and I got it for like $5. So I was pretty excited. So yeah, I think I'm going to start trying to read more, see how that works out in the morning. I think when I wake up after I meditate, I'll start reading.
Yeah. But yeah, I did want to say a little bit more about what I was saying before about that guy, Aaron Abke, and what he and that other guy, Brian Scott, were talking about. And they were describing, when they talk about the law of one, it's about us being part of one consciousness, just like the Kybalion talks about, right? And I think it's like Kybalion, right? That talks about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, it's almost like the living in the mind of God type of thing, right?
Yeah, sort of like that. Like the all is what we are inside. The all is everything. It's encompassed. It's kind of like God, the creator, you would say, but it says that the universe is mental.
So it's basically the way he's describing it. And don't quote me, but I'll try to remember to put the link in the description, so that you guys can go look at it for yourselves. But basically the way he's talking about this is he's just talking about it as if God is, God is God, right? He's always existed. And it's like God wanted to know himself, but it's not like he decided at one point in time, oh, I want to know myself. Now what am I going to do? But it was just, he's always constantly been knowing himself it's almost like we're little pieces of him, or, of the all. We're little pieces of the all, getting to know the all, getting to know each other. And so, and by all the things that happen in this world, that's how we get to know each other. And this is going to happen infinitely forever. And of course, there are different dimensions to all of this. We're not just living in this one. This isn't the end all be all. Of course, there's other places to go. There's different dimensions. So, according to that video that I was watching, and sounds interesting. So I kind of wanted to check a little bit more about that out.
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. I think it's mirrored in nature too. If you think about like just the way water works, that's what I was talking about, right? So sometimes you have water that's in the ocean or in ponds or whatever, and then you have some water that's being taken up to the sky. All the way to the sky, it gets a consciousness, right? And then after a while, it collects all into these clouds and then it rains back down. So it's just this cycle that keeps going and going. So in that same way, I think that consciousness could work that way, that we have to rise to the top. Maybe when you get to the tippity top, you could flip over easily. Maybe some people stay up there, or maybe you can escape this realm somehow. I'm not really sure, but I think these are the topics that people like. People that like our show like to hear stuff crazy.
Contemplate.
Yeah, we're just over Sharon to the max.
But it reminds me.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it reminds me of some thoughts I had the other night about dreams. And a friend asked me, like, what do you think dreams are? And so it made me think,
oh yeah,
like, what could dreams be? So that night I fell asleep, slept, woke up in the morning. But as I was waking up in the morning, I was like, dreams, what are they? And then I closed my eyes again just so I could remember what I just dreamt, even though I didn't really remember what I dreamt, but that thought was in the back of my mind of what really are dreams. What are they? Why do I feel like when I come out of a dream, like I don't want to just jump out of that, wake up and just be ready to go in this realm. I can't do that. I kind of almost want to like stay and remember what I just dreamt, because maybe it will be a key. Maybe it will help me. Maybe, or because it just felt so real. It just felt so, yeah. So my thoughts were, they're like half asleep. My thoughts were, what if the dream, I know people have contemplated on this before, but it felt really like it made sense to me as I was there, lying there thinking about it, that the dream world to me felt like the real world. And that this realm that I wake up to is the place where I have to live out the things that I promised I would do in the dream world. The things that the dream world was telling me about that were either going to happen or that happened or that I needed to fix or work on. And so when I woke up to this realm, was I going to remember those things that I said I was going to do, or that were going to help me? Or am I just going to forget and just wake up and be like, okay, rat race, here we go. Right. Work from 9 to 5, we come back, be tired, people watch TV, go to bed, wake up again, rush, drink their coffee, go to work. Their mind turns off for like 8 hours. Then they come back home, they turn their mind off again in front of the TV, over and over and over. And so those thoughts, as I was thinking them, really felt to me like that made more sense. And so I wondered to myself if people who, because it's like, there's a balance in this life. There's a balance to living life, right? There's clearly a reason why 8 hours approximately are the average hours that people sleep, right? That they need those 8 hours. And perhaps we need those 8 hours to go back to the real world, the real place, to, collect our thoughts and make sure that we know what we're going to do when we come back, come back and do what we're going to do. But then some people maybe don't remember or don't know or ignore it, right? Or they don't sleep enough because they're sitting in front of the TV for too long, or they're playing video games all night, or they're just distracted and they're like, no, I'm not. I'm going to ignore my sleep. Brandon's yawning.
Yes, that's funny.
I'm going to ignore my sleep because I don't need that, And so they're ignoring the real world. They're ignoring what's going to give them, perhaps, maybe what's going to tell them, wake them up, to what they need to do in this realm.
Yeah, it's quite possible. I mean, if you think about what the Matrix movie shows, how the people are sleeping in pods, and then if you think about like simulation theory, where people think we're like in some kind of game or simulation, I'm not saying I agree with those, but maybe you can use those as allegory to see what this realm really is. Maybe when we go to sleep and we dream, we have contact with another dimension, another side. And that's where we're trying to work these things out. And then we just go, all right, you got to go back in, kind of like that movie Flatliners, or any movie where somebody gets put into another situation, even that movie.
Avatar was kind of like that.
Exactly. Avatar. Perfect example.
Avatar was totally like that. Like when they went to sleep, he'd come back and he'd like figure out what he's going to do. And then he'd go back in.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, I think that maybe could be some kind of, maybe even subconsciously, it's the collective unconscious pointing toward it. Oh, that's what I wanted to really quickly. So in the beginning, when I was talking about this vibration, I think you hear people like Carl Jung talk about the collective shadow, and how people in society kind of share the same shadow. I think if that's true to some degree, whatever exactly that means, when you get to a certain vibration and you're not working on any of that shadow stuff, you're not getting enough sleep, you're not trying to heal yourself or whatever, I think that that's the behavior that is manifested. So I just want to say that because it really, again, takes away from this victim consciousness, because no one's doing anything to us but ourselves. We all are. So, then people say, well, what am I going to do if the grocery store has no food, or all this stuff that gets screwed up because of the other people, everyone's messing it up. That's true. But I think that, again, if you're not consenting, you step out of it. You don't have to worry about it as much. If you just can stay at a higher vibration and not have the vibration of fear or anger, that's really when you start to experience this realm in a whole different way, and doors will always open to you. It's like that quote that I sent to you about the despair. Maybe we can read that. I'll look that up.
Find that.
Yeah, that was a quote by Rumi. Yeah. That was really good.
What else? That stuff that I was talking about, just the whole collective and how you treat other people and all that. It also reinforced this thought for me that, like, because we're all little tiny pieces of that God, mentalism, that God mind. We're all those tiny pieces of that God mind. How can we hate someone else? Like, how can we, I don't know. I'm just like, it makes sense to like love someone else for who they are, because they're just another little piece of God acting out in a certain way to get to know someone in a, you know, to get to know someone in a different, you know, because again, like you can't learn what forgiveness is if you don't know what you have something to forgive for, you know what I mean? And I screwed up my speech there, but I think you get it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's, again, it goes back to the knowing. And the only way to truly know is to experience it. So
Right.
to know what it's like to rise, you have to know what it's like to fall. And because the thing is, if you rise, which is okay. So say if you are at an elevated state, but you have no memory, or you have no idea what it's like to be in the lower pits and to be in despair, or to just spiral down. I think just that wondering alone will bring you there, you know, and then you have that experience and you know which one you like, you know which one you could choose, because it's because of experience, and that's how you feel. It's not because people are telling you to do this or because you think it's the right thing. It's because you know it inside you.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead.
And just to say, even if it's not true that we're little tiny pieces of God's mind and all this stuff, what is wrong with even having these thoughts that it is this way? Because all it does for me is make me go, I can't hate anybody. I see them as all part of me now, just like that Instagram page that you follow, or whatever profile that you follow. You are another me? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, you are another me. Yeah.
You are another me. I thought of that today during meditation, like you are another me. And I'm like, everybody's another me. Like, how can I hate anybody? I have to show love to everybody because they're all part of me, because we're all part of God. It's just mind blowing to think that there's you can't be victimy about it. You know?
Yeah, totally. It's just the way it is. And the sooner you accept it, then the sooner you can mourn the way you thought it was, and you can get over it. You go through the stages of grief, and acceptance is like one of the last ones. So you can get there. And this isn't, sometimes I guess you could do it about everything, but this is usually like a case by case process that you do. You figure it out for one thing in your life, and then you have something else that's bothering you, and it's like a puzzle, right?
Yeah. So what were you going to read?
So I have this Rumi quote. It says, "Whatever happens to you, don't fall in despair. Even if all the doors are closed, a secret path will be there for you that no one knows. You can't see it yet, but so many paradises are at the end of this path. Be grateful. It is easy to thank obtaining what you want. It is easy to thank after obtaining what you want. Thank before having what you want."
That was a really, really good quote. I really like that.
Yeah, I like how he boils it down to exactly what you need to say. So it's basically just have gratitude when you're in despair, or you feel yourself in that. You just look to the other parts of your life that are going well, or whatever it is that you're grateful for. Try to find something. I mean, the fact you're still alive is a good one to be grateful for. There's so many other ones that people could do. You could do like an exercise. You could write down things that you're grateful for. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. My friend Beth got me a book of Rumi quotes, but it's a workbook.
Oh.
So one page has a quote, and the other page you can write what you think about it and notes, and I guess you can even doodle if you want on it.
Oh, that's really neat.
Yeah, I was so excited about it. I don't have it here in front of me, or I'd show you, but very interesting. And obviously the quotes in there are just mind blowing. We could read some more that I have, because I put 3 of these in the Over Sharon thing. So you have no idea how hard I've looked for you. Take 2 in action. You have no idea how hard I've looked for a gift to bring you. Aww. Nothing seemed right. Yeah. What's the point of bringing gold to the gold mine or water to the ocean? Everything I came up with was like taking spices to the Orient. It's no good giving my heart and my soul because you already have these. So I brought you a mirror. Look at yourself and remember me. And
that's beautiful.
that one's great because I really feel that if you look at people like a mirror to yourself and their behaviors that bother you, you could just, and we talked about this before, but you could turn around and see what's going on with inside. And that's some of the hardest stuff to do because it is so much easier when you're at a certain vibration to just judge people and say they're the wrong ones, because it alleviates you from having to do the work and having to take personal responsibility. And it's, again, it's like a step-by-step process as you go along. And I think the more that you do this stuff, you start to change your vibration and you start to spiral up. And like I said in last week's episode, that there could be other forces, higher beings, maybe beings that have gone through this and they're in a different realm, or how did Fortune say it? A different dimension, like higher. Yeah. It's possible that they can see us and that they could assist us, just like ones below us maybe could see us and help to pull us down. Because at the end of the day, if you're in the world and you're engaging in an action, forces I think are going to come to your aid no matter what you're doing. They're going to help you go up or help you go down. So that's a really good one, because then you could start to do it really for yourself. You start to look at things like a mirror for yourself, and then you never know what doors are going to be open for you. The secret pathway, allegedly. I'm still looking for it. No, I think we're on it.
Yeah, you were saying about a mirror and everything. And I recently, the reason I chuckled and laughed was because I just, before we started recording, I just asked a friend to look at a person and just tell me what was bothering them about them. Like, kind of like mirror it back on yourself. What is it about that bothers you? And just think about that, because it's very true. If something bothers you about somebody, you really have to look back at yourself and ask yourself, why does it bother you? It's usually going to be related to some wound, and you may not even know it. You may not even like it. You'll have some. Okay, so I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was telling her, blah 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 blah, whatever I was whining about, right? And then as I'm talking to her, actually I was sending her an audio message. So as I'm sending the audio message, I'm talking it out to myself, right? And I'm just like, so, maybe it's because when this ever happened to me, and then I start crying, I'm like, oh my God, like, and it was like, there was like a abandonment issue or something related to why I was upset, why something bothered me. And I was like recording an audio message telling her this, and then I start crying because I've figured out the wound. I figured out the root. But the thing is, once I figured out the root and I cried it out, I was done. Like, it didn't bother me anymore. I just laughed afterward.
Yeah, you leveled up.
Yeah. I mean, so you truly have to, like, if you find yourself whining about something, so, and you can't say that we're not, like, I'm not telling you that I'm perfect. I'm still doing the work, but I had to look at myself and find why was I bothered? Why was I hurt? What was at the root of that?
Yeah, I like that. And I think that the fact that we have people to talk to about this kind of stuff really helps, because just because you were expressing this to somebody else through a voicemail, you were able to talk it through to yourself. And then because you were saying it out loud, it was an internal thing. You were like, oh man, this is what I sound like. This is what I'm saying. And you could say to yourself, what if someone else was saying this to me? What would I say? And then you're like, oh shit, bingo, this is what it is. You have that realization, you could let it go, and you're not trying to repress it or hide it or whatever.
Process, right? And it's like, I know that when we were in the chat, in the live chat for the, I don't know what episode, maybe a couple of episodes ago. Brandon had said something about don't be gossiping about people.
Yeah.
When we were talking about judgments, and you said don't be gossiping, which was a judgment in itself, Brandon.
I know.
Don't you judge people that are gossiping.
How dare you?
How dare you judge people that are gossiping?
I was just over Sharon.
But just to say that sometimes you have to have a friend that you can talk to that is trustworthy, that's going to be able to listen, because it's one thing to gossip about somebody and have zero desire to help that person or to help yourself, right? Because you're either gossiping about them because you don't like something that they did or said or whatever. Now, why don't you like it? Is it something that they really needs to be addressed with that person? Is it really that bad? Or is it something that points back to you? Now, if you have someone to share that with and you have someone to talk to who's trustworthy, who's not going to go tell somebody that you're talking about somebody behind their back, right?
Mhm.
It's more about using that as a way to process. Because again, had I not said anything to her, I never would have figured it out. Not like I wouldn't have done that on my own necessarily, because I had to like be speaking out loud, talking about it. And maybe if you don't have anybody, do audio messages to yourself, just record like what you're thinking of, what your thoughts are, because if you have no one else, maybe that'll help. Right. But she was the person I spoke to about it. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like you're supercharging the process. Just like I think when you get into a conscious relationship, if you're going to, especially if you're going to live with somebody and share your life with them, they're going to be a constant mirror to everything you do. And I think that's kind of like the next step of all that, working on yourself and them working on themselves and then working on the relationship also. So I feel like, but good friends can also help you with that stuff too. Just because you don't live with them doesn't mean you can't talk to them and have a conversation and figure all this stuff out. And I think that really is the, what do they call it? The important work or the great work. There you go. That's really the great work.
Yeah.
Because that person can also then learn from your example,
Right. And they can be processing things themselves too, that, they may have good feedback for you, which, she did have some good feedback for me too. So.
Yeah. And maybe they're judging you because you're gossiping. So then they could say, well, why are you judging this person? They're just coming from their, what's it about me? Was it because people used to gossip about me? And you could just go into all these different levels of things. And again, none of this is right or wrong. That's another thing about judgment. I do sound very judgy when I'm talking about it, but these are just things I've learned that I'm trying to incorporate. So I'm not saying that I don't gossip and stuff like that. I don't really do it a lot, but I'm sure everybody has different things that they talk about. And it's not always gossip. I think gossip is more of a negative way of looking at it. It's just, it's like, it has a negative connotation to it. But yeah, anytime you see somebody and you're just like, oh, what is this person doing? Oh, like you get into that mode. But again, like we were talking about in the last episode, it doesn't mean you get mad at yourself for judging them, because we're judging creatures. That's what we do. We're going to judge people. So you could stop right there and then you can use that judgment to overcome it. And then after a while, I think it might even go into some kind of automatic mode. You can get into like a flow state where it just comes in and you kind of let it go and it comes in, but it's like lifting weights. At first, it's going to be tough. And then if you want to get stronger, you lift heavier weights. So you just keep upgrading. And then at a certain point, when you become a master, just like, I had to become a master at my DJing skill, my wedding skill. At first, it was much different. But now that I'm at this different level, there's like a lot less fear and worrying about things. And now I could just focus on what I need to get done and just act in the moment. And so it flows. I get into like a flow state with it. And I feel this is applicable to anything in your life, especially
like podcasting.
Yeah. See, look at Sharon flowing. We've been going for like just an hour. Doesn't feel like it, huh?
It went by pretty fast.
Yeah, it did. I have another quote here I can read by Rumi too. This is a good one. To love is human, to feel pain is human, yet to still love despite the pain is pure angel.
I love that. That was such a good one.
So simple, so easy. And I think
Yeah.
this could be another key to that next realm, right? He's saying the angels. Well, if you start to act like an angel, it's just like fake it till you make it, baby, right? That's what they said. That's basically what I did again in my DJ career. When I first started, I got thrown into these situations where I was DJing a bar by myself, and I didn't really have an idea, but Dwayne had told the owner of the bar I was DJing for like 5 years or whatever. So I was just like, yeah, man, I just did whatever he said and I was faking. And then eventually after being experiencing so many times, I could start to build my craft and to start to build my skill. I wouldn't say go do that in a lot of jobs, but some of them, where you could, it's like they say when a lot of times you get that corporate stuff. It's like, what is it? Prepare for the job you want or something like that, or, play the part that you want already.
Yeah.
So you're just doing extra work basically, because you're not only doing the task, but you're working on your craft as well, because there's some jobs where you could just work on the crafts, or you just do your job and you never get better. Yeah, you never get better on it. I mean, even in a job where it needs a lot of skill, some people just kind of call it in.
Well, because there's a lot of stuff that's very focused. A lot of jobs these days have become very super focused, and people don't know what someone else is doing, and people don't know what the whole big picture is. That's what when I went into engineering and I learned how to write programs in college, I didn't really like that. It was way too I was a social person. I was a network person. I didn't like that. Just, I would be in my cube writing code all day. That just didn't vibe with me. That totally was not my thing. But for whatever reason, source knows why, I took that. I ended up doing that. And, but when I was about to graduate, I thought I was going to keep going to school because I was like, well, I don't know what I want to do. And so I was going to continue my education to be a linguist, to study linguistics, because that was more my passion, right? So I started my first semester of my graduate program in linguistics, and then I got asked if I would want to work at this major corporation, which I worked for. I mentioned this I think 1 or 2 episodes ago, about the corporation which I worked for. And I worked there for many years. I didn't know that was going to happen. It just fell in my lap. And I was like, okay, I'm just going with it. I'm going with the flow. And the position wasn't it wasn't for my, it's not what I graduated for. So it's not what I got in my degree in, but it was adjacent. And so I like that word. And so when I got in there, I was kind of just doing some really simple, basic stuff, nothing complicated. And then a position opened up for something like pretty unrelated, but I felt it was more something that I would like to do anyway, because it wasn't so specific. I mean, I'd have to know a lot of different things and be involved in a lot of different things, which was more what I liked. And that just ended up being what happened. And I just kind of, there was only one other guy working in that position. And then when I joined, not long after, he left. So he kind of left me in the position of just be like, I had to fake it to make it, basically, like you said. And so I started just figuring out what the process was, and I started to, in my head, mentally figure out, okay, how does this work? How can I streamline this? How can I document this so it's not on my head? And over the years, I documented it and I made it into a process, and I basically handed it to other people to do.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome. You were able to utilize all your skills in a certain way, and everything.
and they weren't the skills that I learned in the,
Yeah, wasn't the
they were just
indoctrination that you were taught?
Yeah, and they weren't my indoctrinated skills. They were skills that I innately had them.
It's funny how you got that experience to do it and got paid for it, and now that whole, because you were able to, I'm sure you had that skill to some extent, but because you were able to work on it, like all the problem solving stuff and all the different processes, you're able to do it, gain confidence in it, and have other people do it. And now you could do it in other aspects of your life just because you exercise that muscle so much. So now it's kind of like second nature,
Yeah, there was a lot of networking. I just was very social. I knew a lot of people in the company because I would just meet them. I would just say hi to people, and then they'd tell me which department they worked for. And then I would network with them. I'd be like, oh, you're doing that. Oh, you're doing that. Let's all work together and do this because we all need this. So it was just, it was fun. I liked that part about it.
And now you get to do it with other people in regards to healing. Right? Because that's kind of how I feel that you are, especially in this Telegram bear community, all this stuff, whatever it is, you're able to aggregate information in that same way. So you'll find something, someone's talking about it, be like, hey, have you heard of this? Have you heard of that? And then when you get enough stuff, we talk about it on the show. So you're kind of doing the same thing in that regard,
Yeah. And people aggregate, we aggregate and people make connections. Like, Adam's not going to see everything related to plasma stuff. So if I see something that looks like, it might be a plasma event, I send it to him, and he'll post it on his channel.
And lately you've been doing a lot with people. We're basically trying to do it to just get rid of despair, right?
Yeah.
And hate and anger, and take what we've learned and share it with other people. But I think it's great. This is really just the beginning of it. I can't imagine where it's going to be in a year, 5 years, whatever it is, 10 years, think about all this conscious stuff that we talk about as more people start to come on. Oh, something else I want to talk about, which is really crazy. So as my friend Beth was reading the book, she pulled, I forget the name of the deck, but it's more of an oracle deck. And she's reading, and the lady in the book is just nailing these concepts. And I'm like, wow. And then I was thinking to myself, well, I have this different understanding of words, right? So when she was reading this card, it was like sacred burial ground or something like that. And she was saying how, like, when people die and then move on to the next thing. And I'm like, wow, you could take that concept of death and listen to like episode 13, how we talk about how it could be esoterically, and it could be a death of yourself, like you, when you cried with
my friend,
when you had that realization, right? It was like a death of that, and you accepted it. So in that same way, it's applicable. So for me, I'm getting something a little different out of it. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, is this lady really, because there was other stuff that was even deeper. I just can't think of it exactly right now, but I'm like, is this lady really that based, or is she just putting these words in there coming from the unconscious or coming from her unconscious mind? She's writing it. And at one level, it makes sense to her, but at another level, it makes sense to me in this way, kind of like Jesus's parables would make sense to different people. I mean, I'm sure she's probably aware of what she's talking about, but it's amazing. So that made me think that if there's all these tools that are starting to come available for people, like different tarot decks, and a lot of the tarot decks we read have a lot of good stuff in them. So it's not like before, where you look at, like, say, astrology, and you just have the sun sign in the newspaper and all this stuff. There's all this information everywhere. And that must mean that there's a demand for it. That's why it's getting filled. If you think of just the way that supply and demand works in our nice quasi-capitalist, communist, whatever the heck we live in. But all this stuff that's consumerism based, it's because it's what people want and it's selling. So at the end of the day, people are getting what they want because they want to be healed. They're looking for these answers. They're spending their money in this direction. So in that way, they're manifesting it. They're making it happen. All these people are coming together to make different tarot decks. Some of them could just be looking to cash in, but there's not really a lot of grabble in it. If you're open, and like I said, with the words, if you know the different meanings of words and you're on this path of truth, you don't really have to worry about any kind of trap. It's not like an organized religion where you got to go there and pay the same person every week, week after week, and do what they say. These are tools for you to heal yourself. And the reason, I mean, you could get one at Marshall's, right? I mean, you can get crystals at Marshall's now. So the reason, the fact that it's so prevalent, a lot of people would be like, oh, it's the new age, they could see that consciousness is rising, so they're just creating more traps. Do you have any evidence for that? That could be true. Maybe that's part of it at one extent, but the way I'm looking at it, realistically based, we know how books sell, we know how tarot sells, and we know how Barnes and Noble is only going to put stuff in there that they think people are going to buy, right? Walmart, Marshalls, all these places. So the fact that there's this influx is really a good sign to me, because it means that people are starting to get to the next level of consciousness. And even if they fall into another trap, I think I've said this before, it's fine. They're spiraling upwards. They're looking for this. Not everyone's into it, but I think now is a point where more people that I know anyway are into this kind of stuff than ever. So I think it's really exciting. It's another thing we could be thankful for.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because I too had recently been thinking about how surprising it is to me that so many people these days are more adjacent to this stuff than ever before. Like, for as many like churchy people as there are in the world, I'm surprised at how many people are so open to like spiritual, like truly spiritual topics that are not rooted in indoctrination, right? I'm just surprised. And like you said, like seeing tarot decks at Marshall's, or, not all the time, but every once in a while, and seeing crystals at Marshall's, seeing interesting stuff like that. It's like, it's picking up. People are interested. People want to know.
Yeah. And it's because of that, that it's all created. Yeah. I remember somebody on Joe Rogan back in the day was like talking about grass-fed beef. And he's like, this is why grass-fed beef is better for you. When they eat the grass, their fat is actually different. It's more healthy for you. And he's saying how you have to go to like a farm, or you can go to these places. He goes, but if everybody started to demand grass-fed beef, he's like, they turn all these golf courses you see, they would just turn them into pastures, because that's the demand, Right. So these are some things that we can be thankful for instead of being in despair, because, you look at the world and so many people think it's a terrible place. But honestly, I really do feel like it's getting, I guess you could say, easier. I mean, it's still tough what they did, what happened in what happened in 2020, what we all did in 2020. There we go. What we did was tough and very stressful for a lot of people, a lot of despair, a lot of fear out there, but again, I think it was a catalyst for something where it kind of made people wake up, because they couldn't just live their everyday life, and they had a choice, sink or swim. And a lot of people are choosing to swim, and then out of that, they can rise up and maybe fly in the sky one day.
Yeah. Yep. I just wanted to touch on why I brought up that, because I had read the quote earlier when we first started. I'd read the quote in Matthew, and the reason I brought it up was I had gone to my massage therapist recently, and we sometimes end up talking about just really interesting things. And she told me that there was either a documentary or she knew somebody or something who had gone to India and had asked like all the Christians in India, can't talk today, about Jesus, and asked them if he had been in India. And all of them, every single one of them was like, yeah, we know this. Like, this is common knowledge. And she's like, but nobody knows that in the US. Like, you know, so I was just thought that was interesting. And as we were reading for like in one of the episodes previous, I think last episode, we were like reading through some Bible quotes, and I was telling Brandon about this story, and we were talking about the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna and Arjuna and stuff, and it made me think of this scripture, because it's basically like, okay, what was Arjuna asking Krishna? And what was Krishna telling him to do? Like, slay. Like, you can't love other people more than you love God. And what is God? God is the higher consciousness. It's the collective. It's everything. It's you. Dare I say?
Could be at some level if we go back to that part where, so when we say you could be God, we don't mean the creator of the whole universe, specifically you yourself in the ego way. We mean that you could be an aspect or a part of him reflecting back and
interacting with itself, like mentally.
Yeah. The way that I heard it put in the audiobook of the Kabbalion that I have is, he talks about, and it's funny because he made this distinction, and then I was listening to Eshwan Eknath. Is that how you say it?
Eknath Eshwaran.
Eknath Eshwaran. He's the one who wrote that Bhagavad Gita in the different commentaries on it. It's not read by him, but he wrote it. And I found an audiobook years ago where he's talking about Thomas à Kempis and the imitation of Christ and all this stuff. And when we say imitation, it's funny because we always think of imitation as a false representative, but it just means to imitate, right? So
yeah, to mimic.
Yeah, to mimic. So
to mimic, yeah.
You're trying to mimic again with the words, right? It's crazy because
imitation crab.
You're making me hungry. So no, I'm actually pretty full.
Sushi. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
So I was listening to him talk, and he was talking about that same exact thing, which was, did I lose now what I was talking about?
Eknath Eshwaran reading.
What was I saying before?
Imitation of Christ by.
There was so he was talking about this certain part that was also mentioned in the Kabbalion, and the Kabbalion says that you can have Charles Dickens, right? Think of Charles Dickens, and he has a character. I think they used the guy's name, Uriah Heep. Is that a character in one of his novels? I hope. Well, he says that because I guess he's a bad character or whatever. He's like one of the bad guys. He goes, is Uriah Heep Charles Dickens? No, he's not Charles Dickens, but he's still an aspect of him, right? He's what that Charles Dickens put into that character. So he's still a piece of him in that way. And the Kabbalion used the same analogy. And I thought it was mind-blowing.
I said that before in another podcast that we had. I can't remember what it was, but something to that effect. It's like that character won't call himself the author.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But you can think of that character as an aspect of the author because that author created that character.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
amazing.
like us. We're aspects of God. We're not the God. We're not the creator, but we're aspects of the creator interacting with the creator.
Yeah. And that's when people start to have a problem when you start to say, I am God. Well, it also depends on your point of view, what you mean, but it's that word again, God, right? It's so kind of grabbled that people have this idea of God being the all father. That's what they're talking about. And then when you say you are God or God is love, you don't mean that all creator God is you, or that's all God is just love. You're just saying that the aspect of that, God's just a placeholder in that point. So I think a lot of people get tripped up in that whole, as they should, because if somebody was going around claiming that they're the creator, you'd be like, what? Then that means you could just do whatever you want and you think you can do no wrong and everything you do is perfect and all that. And again, that's not what we're saying, but I could see that misconception coming about, right? And I think that's
Right.
pretty cool that we dispelled that, because again, it's all the words we use. What word is he using? Why does he know? Like when you say no, what do you mean by the word no? KNO? Like, do you mean like to know some knowledge, or do you mean to
And when
have an
you say it,
experience? Yeah.
right. And when you say it, do you mean NO?
Or you do mean NO. Yeah. I pulled one more card too. I want to show you. This is the Hierophant.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I really like this deck. It's really like, these are the backs of them.
Uh-huh.
So it looks very vintage.
Yeah. It probably is vintagey. It totally looks like it's like an old deck.
Yeah.
How long ago, do you know how long ago it was printed, or?
I probably the early mid 1900s, I would say, because I'll see what it
Oh,
says here.
really?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that's when they were making the rider weights originally, was then. It doesn't say a year here. It is made in China though. See, thank you, Chinese people, for see, they know if they send us this, then we'll get it and we can rise the whole consciousness of the entire realm. Maybe there's one on the this card. Let's see.
That's really cool.
No
That's a
year.
cool
That's
deck.
weird. I could look it up though. We'll look it up.
Yeah,
and
no
figure it out
worries.
next time.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. So the Hierophant, let me just see what this book says.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. It says rider weight or copyright 1971 to 1991. So that's just a copyright. That's when they could have redone them. So who knows?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, even still,
Yeah.
that's still kind of vintagey.
Totally. Ooh, it's got like nice. It has a little like about 3 sentences for each card. And for the Hierophant, it says marriage, alliance, captivity, servitude, mercy and goodness, inspiration, the man whom the querent has recourse. Reversed, society, good understanding, conquered, overkindness and weakness. That's interesting.
I don't have my big book, but I have my little book.
Yeah, there you go. Bust it, doom doom. And the Hierophant to me always kind of on one level it represents the self-work. So if you look at this as your higher self and these are the aspects of yourself, they're both bowing down and they're in alignment to you. And this guy's sitting in the middle of the 2 towers, so he's a portal to what's behind him. So he's basically telling these guys, listen, we got to get our shit together if we want to go back there. But right now I'm facing with that back. So say that is the next dimension, or it's the next step, or the next level of attainment that you're going to get with consciousness. He's using that as a foundation, as a back. So he has it in his mind, but he's working with this world in front of him. And he is aligning the aspects of himself, which could be those 2 little people down there that are bowed down to him. So then they can move on behind. He's basically saying, we're not ready yet. We got to do this. And then boom, we can get back into the next realm or next level of knowing. Kind of like you with your whole experience.
Yeah. So this little book says the upright meaning is you are working with a teacher, mentor, or guiding authority. You will expand your knowledge and learn fundamental principles with a trusted source. And the reversed says you are your own teacher. The wisdom you seek comes from within, not from an outside source. You do not need external approval to be successful. This reminds me of one of my favorite verses in the Bible, 1 John 2:27, which talks about you don't need another teacher because you have the Holy Spirit within you, which is your teacher, basically.
Yeah. That's what I feel like it's really about. If you have a guru inside, so like we talked about with aligning your behavior to Jesus or Krishna or Buddha in the last episode, this is the same kind of thing. So you have this model of who you want to be inside, and that's who you put to aspire toward. So this way you're going inside to do it and fixing aspects of yourself. And it's always not saying it's not good. Again, we talked about getting help from the external world and getting help from other people. That can definitely help you a lot. But I feel like in this society, we're always so taught to get all our validation from external sources. So we're always worried about what people are going to think about us or what we're doing or what the authority is going to think because of fear, because of ignorance and stuff. But I think if we can learn to let go of that fear, then it doesn't matter what other people think, as long as we know we're on the right path. And this could be inverted as well. People like that are psychopaths can have the same thing. They could not be worried about what other people think. They just want to satisfy their own needs or whatever. So I think that, and satisfy their own desires really is what I mean. Their deepest, darkest desires. But I feel that's why it's good to surround yourself with people who are like this, because then you could use them as a gauge also, or bounce ideas off of them. And like you said, talk things out till they make sense to you. And then you're like, oh, that's what's going on,
Yeah. And speaking of self-help or even help from external sources, could it be that some sound healing could be kind of both, right? You helping yourself, but it's coming from an external source. So you went to one recently. Do tell.
Yeah, I went to one last night. Actually, went to a sound bath in it's actually Old Mystic, Connecticut too, because there's a Mystic, Connecticut that's right on the water, and just north of it, it's called Old Mystic. So we were like 5 minutes away, but it was really great. There was probably, I want to say 40 people in there, maybe.
Oh, wow.
And it was just this open space where they usually do hot yoga, but they had all the windows open. There was a nice breeze coming in, and everybody had yoga mats and pillows and blankets and stuff. And here I am with just my yoga mat and a towel, because I just sleep on the floor anyway. My friend's like, are you going to be all right? I'm like, I'll be fine. I'm like, this is great. So I was laying there, and when it first started, I could just feel the vibration, like different parts of my body were like kind of like twitching or whatever. Yeah. Really, really interesting. And as you lay there, you kind of like drift in and out of sleep a little bit. And I was in a really meditative space. I just kept looking at the ceiling and just letting things go, and as they came in, let them go, and just enjoying it. And it really allows you to disconnect from the hustle and bustle of life and all of the thoughts and everything that goes in crazy. You just kind of tune into the vibration that's there. And I mean, there's no truer vibration than musical instruments, right? I mean, especially when it's like a nice calming thing, and there's all different soothing, and there's all different types of
instruments.
Yeah, that's a good one. Exactly. Yeah, it was really interesting.
So what kind of instruments were there, like, for at your sound bath?
They had a bunch of singing bowls, like different
crystal bowls.
Yeah, crystal bowls, and then there's some brass ones that look like metal or whatever. Yeah. Metal. They had a gong also, like, and it was cool because the way it was set up, the room was a little long wise. It was a little skinnier than it was long, but at each corner, each end, they had all this set up. So there's one person on each side doing it, and then somebody's walking around through the people. They had a what's it, a wave drum or something?
Yeah, an ocean drum.
Ocean drum. Oh man, that thing.
That thing's awesome.
Yeah, and then they had some kind of bells and different things that they're walking around with, and it really was like it probably last. I'm not sure because I didn't have my phone in there. I left it in the car to charge, and it was supposed to start at 7. And then when it was over and we were sitting up and stuff, and when she looked at her phone, it was like 8:24 or whatever. So I'm guessing it was at least an hour and 15, 20 minutes because the guy was talking a little bit toward the end. And it didn't feel that long. I figured it was going to be about an hour and a half, and it might have felt like a half an hour of time.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it really is.
It doesn't. Yeah. It's wow. Yeah, one time I was at my friend Stephanie's house, and that's her living room is that basically bowls, gongs, and all kinds of other stuff, bells, wave drum, ocean drum, that stuff. Yeah. So that night I had taken some shroomies, like
marshmallows.
Marshmallows earlier than everyone else had. And so I thought it was going to take it longer to take, but it didn't take as long as I thought. So I went over while some of the girls were just chilling. Some of them went outside, and I think it was my friend's birthday. It was one of my friend's birthday. And I went over to the ocean drum, and I grabbed it and I kept playing it. And all the other girls were like, the hell's wrong with her? Like, she won't stop playing that ocean drum.
She's being called to the sea. You know, one thing I want to say about time was we have a misconception of time. And I think when we're stuffing it with all our thoughts and all our actions and the busyness, it just seems like much longer of a time. You know, like if you're going through a painful experience, you know, if I'm going to like hit you in the head with a stick for 5 minutes, it's going to seem like a lot longer than 5 minutes. But if you're, you know, eating ice cream for 5 minutes, it's going to just go by really fast. Right. So I think it's the same kind of thing where you're not as conscious, or you're not as conscious, you're not lost in all your thoughts, and it's just not thought after thought after thought. You're just kind of letting it go and just experiencing the present moment. And I think it moves a lot faster that way. Yeah,
that's true. I was sun gazing yesterday, and I'm at about the 15-minute mark now. And it's interesting, but it does go by pretty fast, interestingly enough. But because we're recording on a day that we premiered the night before, so I was listening to, and the sun's going down around the same time we premiere, so I was listening to the show in one ear while I was sun gazing. I didn't want to like miss out on that, so I think that helped make it go by faster too.
Oh yeah, it's just like when you're meditating. Like I do an 18-minute meditation or something. It doesn't feel like, it just goes by so fast. I'm like, wow, is it over already?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we're just about at an hour and a half, so we can wrap this up unless you had something else you wanted to.
That's pretty much what I had.
All right, let me pull one more card just because I can't get cards in here for the ending card. And it is, another ace. Look at that. We got
Ace of Pentacles.
We got we got a pair of aces today. So nice. Ace of Pentacles. Same kind of thing with the Ace of Wands as far as you're beginning a new process, but this is more about, instead of spiritual, pentacles are more about the worldly realm. It could have to do with a career, stuff like that, how you support yourself in the world. It could also have to do with family. So I think that's a great way. We went in with an ace and we went out with an ace.
Yeah. And we had a Hierophant somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, we did. A Hierophant.
Hierophant.
All right, everybody.
Thanks to everyone in the chat.
Yeah, thanks everyone in the chat. Shout out to Paraplegic Bear, because allegedly he's going to send some coffee to Sharon, so she's going to get to talk about it on the stream too. He asked if you like. He's like, is she a decaf, you know, pansy like you are or whatever? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. You could just send her the normal stuff. Yeah.
I like a a medium roast.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I don't just drink. I like to mix the decaf with the other beans. Sometimes I just
I get
too. I'm just letting people know if they want to. Somebody else happens to send me coffee or something. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows who's going to hear this in the future? I don't want, you know, a bunch of people sending me decaf now. But yeah, shout out to him. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Everybody who's been leaving amazing comments. Thank you guys so much.
New people coming in and saying hi, stopping by.
Yeah, that's crazy. We didn't even talk about that, how you met somebody while you were hiking.
Yeah.
Who was into truth and kind of felt alone. And then there's Sharon for you.
Yeah, boom. I appear.
Yeah. So synchronicities abound.
Yeah, I do.
And if you like the show, make sure you hit thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, because we intermittently will release previews and stuff like that. So this way you can be notified right away. Generally, every Thursday night, we premiere the show. So hang out in the live premiere on YouTube, and you can chat with us and you can hang out and see what it's like. And also share this if you think you know somebody who's into this kind of stuff or can benefit from it, or is starting to be open-minded or whatever it is, or you think they can add to this conversation. And also, if you want to add to the conversation, make sure you comment below, because we always talk about our comments on the show. I mean, that's one thing that we really highly value, is all of our awesome, what do we call them? Slaves? All of our awesome fans. There we go. It's a callback to the beginning. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening to the Over Sharon show. And Sharon, what do we say to the good people?
If you're not over Sharon,
then you're totally not Karen.
That's right. So share on.
Yeah, don't be a Karen, be a Sharon.